is happening, fellow fantasy GMs? I am JJ Wang. He is the bearded one, DJ Dub. And with our powers combined, we are the Fantasy Couriers.
Well, we are right after the 4th of July, and we are excited to get closer and closer every day to the season. Usually it's the handsome DJ Joe, the handsome JJ Wang, but this week we added another element to our show. All the way from Minnesota, we have Jeff DeMers, who has a website called downfieldread.com. We're going to go into it in a moment here, but welcome to the show, Jeff. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Very happy to be here. Very appreciative. Thank you guys so much for inviting me on the show. I think it's going to be great. So yeah, doing fantastic. Couldn't do any better.
And I fell across Jeff by just dumb luck. Both of us are part of the Fantasy Turf Wars competition fantasy football league we talked about throughout the last couple weeks, and he's going to tell more about his website in a moment. But before, we got to talk something more important, something that goes way above and beyond fantasy football in JJ Wang and DJ Dub's world. Jeff might puke a little bit while we're talking about it, but last week was the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. My wife and I have watched it every year since we've been together. 18 years of marriage was celebrated a few weeks ago, and 21 years together. So yeah, we but I've never had the courage to try it. But JJ Wang, what did you think of the hot dog eating contest this year? I saw you make some comments on some of our threads.
Well, let's be obviously it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same 4th of July that we've had the past 20 years, because we all know the great Joey Chestnut was banned for evidently signing a contract with a vegan hot dog company or whatever he was, and Nathan's didn't like that, which I understand. They're direct competition, but at the end of the day, your money maker is Joey Chestnut. He's what the people come to see. And even like people like me watching on TV, yeah, I love the hot dog eating contest, but I also kind of like watching Joey Chestnut, an American hero, continue to dominate the sport. But I mean, I still enjoyed it. The winner, I think his name was Bertatelli. I mean, he still finished 58 hot dogs. I mean, that's still really, really good. Maybe next year, still think maybe this is kind of like a plan where let's take a year off from Joey Chestnut. Let's let him lose the title, kind of like Hulk Hogan back in the day, where he would just take like a random vacation, disappear, somebody else get the title, and then he would come back and immediately win the title. But yeah, I mean, I still enjoy it. I love watching people shove their faces with hot dogs. For me, I find it enjoyable for some reason.
Well, Patrick Bartoletti was actually my pick of the day, and I'm with you in the point that I was excited because Joey Chestnut. We were talking to Jeff before. He's like, I've watched bits and pieces of it, but he's part of the country that can't watch it with the gag reflex, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know. I'll have to talk to my therapist about this. It might have been something from my childhood, but something about wet hot dog buns. It just I couldn't do one. And I think it's not like I'm enthralled by, oh gosh, I wonder how they eat soggy hot dog buns when they're shoving them in their mouth and they're pouring water in there to make them go down. Yeah, it's just that wet, soggy hot dog bun, hamburger bun type of thing where it's a texture thing. I can watch it for a little bit, but then after all, I'm just like, man, I don't know. I don't get it.
10 minutes of pure pleasure. We all try, as men, as competitive men, we probably want to know how many we could eat. I think we got you to maybe one and then gagging on the hot dog.
Yeah, I don't think I'd do very well. I think if I had to use the water, and that would be my downfall. If I had to use water to get them down, I wouldn't be able to do it. And I'd be sitting at maybe 4 or 5 hot dogs and watching everybody else go to town.
I ate a few more hot dogs over the weekend, and I'm not going to say I can sit here and eat a lot of hot dogs. I'm not saying that, but I think I could eat quite a few hot dogs. I mean, I'm pretty confident in I don't know how many y'all think would be a good number, but I think I could legitimately eat 10 to 15 hot dogs and be okay with that. But I do know that Joey Chestnut and Kobayashi will be on Netflix coming up, and I think it's September or October, just doing a special between them two. Of course, if you don't know who Kobayashi was, he's the hot dog eating champ before Joey Chestnut took over. He is Japanese, so I will be going for USA all the way. Nothing against the Japanese. I mean, he did a great job carrying the torch, but once America took over, I mean, it can't go back, man.
It's an American pastime, so we got to go through it now. I was in the minority. I enjoyed this hot dog eating contest more than I have in a couple years. I love me Joey, but it's kind of like if you watch we watch Jordan win every year, and Jordan's the GOAT in my book. I loved watching Jordan, but it was kind of cool watching those Tim Duncan years. That year that he took off, watching Hakeem Olajuwon and that Rockets team compete. It was kind of like you didn't know who was going to win. Once Jordan was in his prime, you knew the Bulls were going to win. There was no doubt about it. I knew Joey Chestnut, if he'd have walked out yesterday, would have eaten 70 hot dogs and won by 15 hot dogs. Not that much excitement. Now, I was excited because I got it right, but you didn't know that. But on the women's side, Mickey Sudo is the women's champion. Now has quite a streak. She won her 10th championship, and she would have had him in a row, except she had a kid one year. God. But she's
great lady. Come on.
That's not the thing. She ate 51 hot dogs. That was 7 less than the men's champion. So the women are catching up to us in the hot dog eating contest. Watch out, Mickey Sudo. Joey Chestnut, he's going to be unseated as the greatest of all time pretty soon. Mickey Sudo's killing it. That's all I.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to her. I don't see how a lady that small can get down that many hot dogs. I mean, it's very, very impressive. I mean, I don't know how she does it. But I've watched Joey Chestnut. I was watching Joey Chestnut eating a bit. He was at his house and he was just recording. He ate like 30 some Big Macs. It might have been more than that. And by the time he was done, he was sweating. It looked like he just run like a 45-mile marathon. He was sweating. He was all tired. I was like, dude, you're going to kill yourself, man. You got to be careful.
Yeah, I watched him on Mr. Beast once eat a piece of pizza that was like as big as I am.
It's insane what these guys can eat, man.
5 guys versus him. But this is not a masticating conversation podcast. This is a fantasy football podcast. And I mentioned earlier, and you've heard from Jeff, our special guest here, we are all part of Fantasy Turf Wars. If you go to the fantasycouriers.com, I actually added a Fantasy Turf Wars tab, and I said anybody within the Turf Wars on our message board that wants free promotion for the 3 or 4 people that come to our website, I'll pop you on there. So if you want to, if you go to fantasycouriers.com, go down to the Fantasy Turf Wars tab, there's information about Fantasy Turf Wars, and right there as our first team on there, we have Downfield Read and a link to www.downfieldread.com. Jeff, give us a little snapshot of what Downfield Read is, how you got there, and then we're going to jump into today's topic.
Sure. Downfield Read is really, it came about from a hobby. Love football. I've watched football since I was 6 years old. Went to school, got a degree in sports management, wanted to do something in the NFL. Never came about. So last year, you think about, how long do you have to work in your entire life? And it's been 25 years and I haven't done anything in that realm. So I thought, I'm going to take my hobby, I'm going to take my passion, and I'm going to put it toward a website. So thought about a couple of different names, and Downfield Read really came out to me. Just because it's not a quick read, right? It's not this quick slant. We're going more in depth. We're going to talk about stats. It's going to be very analytical. And so that's where the name came from. And that started roughly a year ago. And now after a year, what I'm realizing is people don't even like to read. So I'm going to have to start getting into what you guys are doing here with Spotify and putting up a YouTube channel and stuff like that, which will be happening later this month. That's what I'm going to get into at my 1-year anniversary, I guess, of Downfield Read. But really what it's about, it's not the same takes as what everybody else is saying, because you feel like you get the same kind of talking heads of, oh, this person is great and that person is great. And, it's more of a realistic take. And I'll give you one example of it is everybody was so high on Bryce Young going number 1 last year. I called it out a year ago and said, I don't think he's going to have a good year. I think he's overrated. I think he's undersized. I don't think he's on a good team. I don't think he has a good coach. I don't think he's going to do very well. Now am I patting myself on the back a little bit? Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely am. But you heard everybody else talking about how Bryce Young was going to be great. And I'm thinking, man, CJ Stroud is the guy. He's just got more tangibles. He's more athletic. He's a little bit bigger. He seems like a smarter quarterback to me when you watch him play in college. So that's kind of the thing. I just kind of wanted to put my own opinions out there, see what was going to happen, have a little fun with it, interact with some people, get to some like-minded people like you guys like fantasy turf wars, and just have some fun with it. So this hobby might turn into something good, might turn into something lucrative, or it might just stay a hobby. I really don't care at this point. So that's kind of what we're at right now and what we're doing.
Well, that's excellent. Yeah, you can check out the site downfieldread.com, and I can't wait to see the videos and snippets. And I think we were in some of our messages, we were messaging on Facebook. You were talking about getting ready to start some podcasting stuff. So we're here if you need anything. As I told you before, we're probably about as bare bones. We have no real expertise. We sort of record, talk, and we'll be on here, but we have fun about it. And I think you're going to see that we are close to being of like-minded. We were about where you sound like you were with Bryce Young. I don't think we were very high on Bryce Young. I'm curious. I'm liking him more this year because of it seems like they're actually giving him some. Last year he was throwing to the three of us, and we were the other guys on the team for the 12 people that were in the stands watching the games. But I think this year they're giving. He at least has a fighting chance this year. Is that better than last year?
Yeah, I would say it's going to be better than last year too. I mean, geez, they won 2 games last year. You can't get much worse than that. I don't think they are. I think they've upgraded their wide receiver core a little bit better. I would actually kind of project them somewhere around 5 or 6 wins. It's not going to be anything dramatic. They have a brand new coach in there again. You just can't keep switching people out, but sometimes you have to find the right chemistry. But hopefully Bryce, I'm not hating on him. I don't dislike him as a human being or a person or anything. I think he'll get better this year. I just don't think he's that number 1 caliber kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, he's just too small, man. It's just people that size just aren't. I'm not saying it's never happened, but how many people like that? How many quarterbacks that size have actually been like legit? Number one. They've played in the NFL, but have they really reached the level that people were saying Bryce Young was? I will give credit to the Panthers team in general. I mean, I know their owner. I think his name's Tepper. He's been getting a lot of crap saying how bad of an owner he is. He hasn't done a good job, but at least I feel like this year, at least he's trying to help out his quarterback, a little more. You had the first pick in the draft. Did they make a mistake? From the first year, it looks like they did, but time will tell. Like I'm a much bigger CJ Stroud fan as well. But the NFL world is crazy, man. One year they're terrible, the next year they look legit. So you can't give up on him, but like I said, with that size, it's hard to get behind, man.
Yeah, and I joked about it too a little bit, just saying that when Bryce Young was in the huddle, I made a joke about what does it take your kid to work day?
Yeah.
Is this a Make-A-Wish Foundation thing where they brought a kid in and put him in a jersey? He's just, to your point, he's very small. I think they have him listed at 5'10". The dude can't be bigger than 5'8", 5'9". Maybe they got him listed at 6 foot.
Us 5'5" guys, we're in there. We can see over at least. I once stood by George Mearson. That was one of the most hilarious things in my life. But
like I said, it is possible. Kyler Murray's a smaller quarterback, and he's a little bulkier than Bryce Williams. But he's not tall, a little fat, more athletic. But I'm saying it is possible. But even with Kyler Murray, look at the ups and down roller coaster career he's had being injured. Probably most of the seasons half the season that he's probably played in over his career.
So yeah, that's your hot take. We're taking it bracing. Now we're gonna hit some more today. Well, let me not spoil it. Let's listen. A fantasy dynasty can last for years. A fantasy dynasty can crumble in minutes. But if we've learned anything over these years, fantasy dynasties need receivers. And the fantasy receiver is how dynasties are built. Introducing DJ Dub's Dynasty Fantasy Receiver Rankings.
Well, I will say you get much better at the drops. They sound good. You do a pretty good job.
It's these big fancy stuff I have going on here on my computer.
Yeah. So with the wide receivers, we agree that they're usually some of the top players that go. Unless you're like that top 3 running back, you're probably going to get through 7 or 8 wide receivers before you would probably take a running back. Is that correct?
I play in a PPR league. My dynasty league that I'm in is a point 0.5, and the Turf Wars one, to my understanding, is a point 0.5 as well. So I'm very high on wide receivers. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm
So
even,
go ahead. My bad.
I say
Apologies.
I'm even on our show. We'll talk about it. I am almost to the zero RB point in my drafting, so I will look at receivers because I'm doing the Scott Fish, not real bowl, but the underdog Scott Fish tournament right now. And I just grabbed the best receiver, and now I'm looking at all these running backs. There's like a juicy pile of running backs right in the middle of the draft, and there's just a lot of guys. Receivers go fast too. Then I'm like, ooh, do I really want? I just drafted Curtis Samuel with like pick 100, and I kind of want to puke a little bit. Although I think he's gonna be great this year, but I'm generally
Great. Curtis Samuel, great.
he's got Josh Allen. Who's somebody on that team? If Josh Allen is a good quarterback, and if you say Josh Allen is the number one quarterback, somebody's got to catch a ball.
Well, I mean, I don't say Josh Allen's the number one quarterback. The numbers say Josh Allen is the number one quarterback. He's been the number one quarterback for the last 3 years, correct?
Yeah. So I got him at one. So Curtis Samuel's got to have a pretty good year. So it is best ball. So we'll see what happens. So yeah. So these are my fantasy pros. I didn't mention that to you, but I somehow I backed into being a fantasy pros ranker. I am pretty terrible at it, but it's just something fun to do. I get to pick guys. So I went through, put my dynasty rankings here, and dynasty that it's a little harder to do because I don't know how you look at it, Jeff. We think like JJ almost has done like 2 years. I think 3 years. I think you're sort of and is like a dynasty window. So if you look 5 years down the road, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Right now, we know Marvin Harrison is the bee's knees, but he could start this year and all of a sudden be terrible. We don't know yet. He's never stepped onto a field. CeeDee Lamb last year could have been his career year, but who knows? And so I think they're almost harder than yearly rankings, but you know what? They're my rankings. I can put them wherever I want, and then by putting my name in there, that's what. Yeah, after the first week of drops, JJ was like, "Hey, put your name on there. That way, it's your fault."
Right.
Yeah.
So Jason, lead us through. You guide us down. You all bust my chops. Tell me what's good, and then I'll give some snarky comments.
Yeah, so I mean, the wide receivers, so many. I feel like this is the one show that you could probably almost make it a 2 episode show and be just fine with the amount of receivers. But we'll try to get them all in this first one. And so we're starting off right with a bang. So we'll just bring up DJ Jeff's number one wide receiver. This is very questionable. This is probably one of the only ones that I've seen. This is your number one receiver is Amon-Ra St. Brown. So before we go any farther, let me hear your reasoning for Amon-Ra being the number one guy.
Well, it's probably about 50-50. You're on your Bryce Young. I've got 3 years of just running, really hitting on some of these rookies. It started with Ramondre, then it went to Amon-Ra, then it went to Puka. I was on board with all these guys, and I got this big heart for Amon-Ra, and I'm looking at the connection made. I mean, we're looking at these first four guys. I mean, pretty much everybody else has the next three guys in some order as their 1, 2, 3. But I'm looking at
real quick. So you got CeeDee Lamb at number 2, Justin Jefferson number 3, and then Jamar Chase number 4. Now, I will say, like, these are literally typically the top 4 wide receivers that people will throw up. So you're just the only one that has Amon-Ra at the top, then at the bottom is number 4 spot.
Yeah, and pretty much. And you look at what Amon-Ra did last year. He had 119 receptions, 1,500 yards, and 10 touchdowns. And he's building that repertoire. This is his third. That was his third year with Goff, building that up. And that Lions team is getting better. So they're ascending. So, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is only 24. Generally, you look at a wide receiver, what is it, 26, 27 is what some people say is sort of their apex. This dude is 24, and he's at the top of his game. And if that means he's going to keep going up, those targets are at 164. Goff throws him the ball. Laporta's going to actually helped him last year. Laporta had a great year. He's taking some of that pressure off. Gibbs, we looked at him the other week. He's going to take some of the pressure off with, or even Montgomery even, that Amon-Ra, he's ascending. He's up there. And the question marks you have, I mean, the argument I would have, CD would be the guy I would argue because you're looking at, for me, Chase is injured too much for my personal liking. Jefferson, it's going to come down to McCarthy. McCarthy is where we're going to find out. And you can give us the expertise from him in a second up in Minnesota, but is McCarthy the answer? If McCarthy's a game manager like Harbaugh had him, then Justin Jefferson's going to be a really good receiver, top 4, sure. But is he going to be the guy for the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, so before Jeff takes over here, I will say when Justin Jefferson came back with the hodgepodge of quarterbacks that Minnesota had last year, like say Jeff can dive in a little deeper on this, Justin Jefferson was still legitimately possibly the number one wide receiver.
Oh, he was killing it.
Yeah, I like Justin Jefferson coming from obviously from Minnesota here. I am not a Vikings fan by any means. I'm actually a Ravens fan. So, but I do follow it. I love, and I got to tell you, I love being in Minnesota. I've lived in Minnesota almost my whole life, and I get to listen to the sports radio here, and they're called K-Fan. And if you want some humorous sports talk, listen to K-Fan because every year is the Vikings year. They'll tell you. They actually came out, and it was funny, within a 2-minute segment, they were talking about Kellen Mond, if you remember him, and he got passed around to, Cleveland, and then I don't even know where he is at right now. During the preseason, one of them actually had the audacity to say, "Oh, I see a lot of Patrick Mahomes in Kellen Mond." And then with the very next sentence said, "But if he doesn't have a good preseason, they're going to let him go." I was like, what? How are you going to see Patrick Mahomes in a guy and then let him go? But anyway, so yeah, I'm not a Vikings fan, but I do agree. I think Justin Jefferson is obviously one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. His downfall is going to be what the quarterback situation is. Not only that, but the Vikings have a very hard schedule in the beginning part of the year. They're going to have Sam Darnold in there to start. I like JJ McCarthy. I had JJ McCarthy on the board at the same time. I had him as the 4th best quarterback. I didn't think Minnesota needed to move up to get him, which they moved up 1 spot. That's fine. We had a lot of people talking about how they were going to move up to number 4 or move up to number 5. It was really unnecessary. JJ was going to be there. I like his mechanics. I like the fact that he is a game quarterback. I like the fact that he came from Harbaugh, running a pro-style offense. I like the fact that he went undefeated against national championship teams, which you can't say about somebody like Caleb Williams, who went 0 for 5 against national championship games last year. So I like that, but I think he needs to develop a little bit more. He's a little bit too robotic. I think he's got to get out of that. But I think JJ, Jordan Addison, having TJ Hawkinson, I think that's really going to open it up. But it is going to depend on the quarterback situation, which I think you're looking at Sam Darnold for maybe the first 6, and then he's gone. And then they'll put JJ McCarthy in. Yep, after the bye week, I think they're going to have to make a move because I think they end up going 1-5.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean, if you're already out, if you're out of it that early, there's no point in really keeping Darnold in there. I mean, Darnold is a legitimate backup NFL quarterback. I feel like he's proven that. He's not a starter, but I think he's a pretty good backup. And if you want to bring in McCarthy to see what he's got, then absolutely. But I still think whatever quarterback in there, Justin Jefferson's going to be fine. CeeDee Lamb's just going to get a boatload of targets. I do understand your Jamar Chase take. He is injured quite often. So that is a little fear. I can see Amon-Ra maybe taking over for Jamar Chase. But I think the ceiling for CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson is so high. I just find it hard to put anybody over them.
Yeah. So what your rankings, if both of you did your rankings, would it be, give me your top 4 rankings. I'm going to ask for, so CD, Jefferson, Chase, put them in order for Dynasty.
So I'd go CD, Jefferson, and Chase. That's how I would put it. And like I said, I'd almost argue switching Amon-Ra and Jamar Chase, just because I think Amon-Ra, he does play every game, and I feel like, I don't want to say his floor. I mean, he's got a very high floor. So he's not going to kill you. But Jamar Chase, from time to time, I feel like he can kind of let you down a little bit.
Yeah, I would put. I'm gonna shake it up a little bit here. I'm gonna put Amon-Ra at 3, only because they have a great running game, and they've even said that they're going to use Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit more, and they've got David Montgomery. They don't need to throw the ball that much. So as bad as it might be in Minnesota for, I guess the quarterback situation, I think they're going to have to throw more. So that gives Jefferson some more targets. And when you look at CeeDee Lamb, I've got CeeDee Lamb number 1 because Dallas does not have a running game. They brought back old man Zeke. What is he going to do? And then you got Rico Dowdle and somebody else. They're not going to run the ball. I don't see how they had all their faith in Tony Pollard last year. and he couldn't get it done. So now it's like you almost see a little bit of panic mode in there. Oh man, we got to get Zeke back. What good is that going to do? So I think CeeDee Lamb is really the one major option on Dallas. He's gonna rake it again this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only that they don't have a running game, they really don't. They really don't have a number 2 option. I mean, I know Brandon Cooks is good; he's fine. But other than that, they don't have. I mean, what was it? Ferguson, their tight end. I mean, he's fine, but they don't have any other options. I mean, Amon-Ra has the tight end, so taking away a lot of targets. Jefferson has Addison and Hawkinson. Chase has Higgins coming back. So there's just so many more targets to be spread around. But in Dallas, it's just going to be it's going to be like Julio Jones back in the day, getting 180, 190 targets. I mean, I think I think it's very, very possible.
Yeah, I mean, he had 181. He's only been 1 year older. So these young receivers these 4 guys. I would take any 4 of them on my team and be happy as a pig in mud. So number 5 is when. I don't know. I think number 5 is probably fairly consensus too. It looks like he's with ECR.
I feel like number 5 is consensus, but like I said, I feel like the next 15 wide receivers, I feel like you can put them all in that kind of, I don't want to say the same tier, but I mean, I feel like they're all pretty close. So at number 5, you have Marvin Harrison Jr., which is probably quickly becoming one of my favorite players. I just absolutely love this guy. At number 6, you got A.J. Brown. 7 is Garrett Wilson. 8, Puka Nacua. Still got some question marks about Puka. Can he maintain what he did last year? Tyreek Hill at number 9, a little older, but still performing very well. And at number 10, I feel like obviously you're a little higher on number 10 is Michael Pittman Jr., one of my favorites as well. So Jeff, what out of all those, which one of those is the biggest question mark, I would say?
I think you've got, and I've seen Puka go as, if first round and, as wide receiver 7.
Yeah.
And I think what you have to remember there is that Cooper Kupp didn't play the whole year. And even when he did, he was semi-injured. So I'm not a big fan of putting Puka up there so high. I like Garrett Wilson. I actually drafted Garrett Wilson last year. He was my number 1 overall pick. But you've got Aaron Rodgers, and a lot of people aren't hyped up on Aaron Rodgers. But as long as he's playing, he's going to find Garrett Wilson. Let's be realistic about it. He's not Zach Wilson. So he's going to find Garrett Wilson. I think Tyler Conklin is a really great second option there as a tight end. People seem to just kind of throw him under a rug for some reason. And I couldn't believe all the Bowers projections that, tight end, he's going to go to the Jets. I was like, they don't need a tight end. Conklin is a 10 to 15 kind of tight end. So I do like the Garrett Wilson. Marvin Harrison, you're right. What is he going to look like in that scheme in Arizona? He could be a big shocker. Maybe we're giving him credit because of his name and his dad. Should he have gone ahead of Malik Neighbors? Maybe he did again because of the name. But I think he's going to be. I have high hopes for Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. So I like him at that kind of 6, 7, somewhere in that range. I happen to think Drake London is not washed up yet. You got Kirk Cousins going down there. Kirk Cousins makes number 1 wide receivers. So don't bail on Drake London yet. If Kirk is healthy, and that's going to be the key thing, if Kirk is healthy, he can make a number 1 wide receiver out of Drake London, and he could very easily be a tier 2 type wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I think here at Couriers, we're big fans of Drake London. We actually have Drake London down here at number 15. So Drake London's in the mix of like all those other receivers that are kind of stuck behind, I don't want to say questionable quarterback play to where we don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of like Malik Neighbors. We got him at number 11. We got Daniel Jones at quarterback. We got Jalen Waddle at 12. Got Tua at quarterback. Whether you want to believe in Tua or not, I still think there's a question mark there. Brandon Ayuk, his question mark isn't so much his quarterback, is will he be playing for the 49ers? Yeah. And then we have Chris Olave. Well, I mean, he's got Derek Carr at quarterback, so we're just not really sure at all what's going to go on there. And of course, Drake London at 15. I think out of all those wide receivers, I'll even put Michael Pittman in the group with these wide receivers here. You got Pittman at 10. I think Drake London does stand a possibility of being the best out of that bunch as far as putting up better numbers. Because like you said, when Kirk Cousins does play, Kirk Cousins does produce number one wide receivers.
Yeah, and the thing about Michael Pittman Jr., I like that pick. I didn't hit on that one either. I like the fact that Adonai Mitchell fell so far into the second round. I had him surefire first round guy. At the back end, I thought Buffalo was going to take him to make up for the fact that they lost their top two wide receivers. He's fast. He's a fast kid, 4'4" maybe. He's big, 6'2", 6'3". I think the pairing of those two, I think that's going to be something exciting to watch if Richardson plays, and if he does well coming back from injury. Even if he doesn't, you got Flacco behind him, and we saw what he could do with Amari Cooper in Cleveland. I think either way, you've got a good quarterback situation in Indy for Michael Pittman Jr.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that Pittman. I thought I may get crushed. That's my album. Like I'm a Drake London lover. I love some Drake London. He could be like these are fluid anyway. He could be a guy that moves. Somebody's listening to this in like August, going, "Why is Drake London at like 9 or 8 or 11?" Well, that's because they're fluid rankings. But I love Drake London. It's a matter of seeing what meshes there, and if he takes that next step. When he was coming in, he was one of my favorites because I'm an Amon-Ra guy. Drake London, who did he learn from? Amon-Ra St. Brown came off the same tree. He was learning from. So they're similar. And Drake London, if you look at his career, has not been stellar, but the dude still has managed 860, 900 yards every year with basically the three of us throwing him the football, which is just dumb luck for the poor guy. And he's still getting open. So I think that the sky's Kirk Cousins. We are Kirk Cousins fans here. Like we call him the Mendoza line of football. And like he's that guy. He's not gonna kill you. He's not gonna take you to the promised land. But I love some Kirk Cousins. When he got drafted years ago, I said, well, it looks like Washington just drafted their best quarterback that year, and I was right. But I could see Drake London soaring, and especially because I like Penix. I like the signing of Penix. I mean, he's gonna be like 82 till he can play, but if he learns, I'm an old school guy. You sounds like you're about the same age we are. So I'm an old school guy that if he learns from Kirk Cousins, who's been around the league for all these years, that is going to be great for him. Even if Kirk only plays 1-2 years, Penix comes in next year. Penix comes in 2 years. He's got all that learning. Then he's got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, who knows, a stellar running back. And I mean, Darnell Mooney's down there, and he's young too. He's their speed guy. He's their Adonai Mitchell, right? I mean, he's not. We don't know what Adonai. We don't know either. But they're starting to build something there. I think that could be decent. But he could learn from him. But yeah, it's the one that scares me. The one that I'm surprised I got away with was Tyreek. I have him at 9, and it's only because I think he's a liar, and I think he's a freak. Tyreek told me he said to all of us that I'm going to play 3 years. So I'm like, okay, I'll never be able to trade him in Dynasty. But then the dude killed it till if he hadn't gotten hurt towards the end, he'd have been he'd have been number one receiver and hit 2,000 yards. And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, well, Waddle got paid. Tua might or might not get paid. Pay me because I'm the best. So if he's paying to get another contract, is he paying to get more where he is? I think he's gonna play longer than he says he is. So that's 3-year window right there.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Tyreek Hill's a legitimate threat here, and I don't know if I could have both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle up this high. It would have to be one or the other. Because like I said, my confidence in Tua isn't all that, but I still think Tyreek Hill's a legitimate threat. And if you're trying to win, even if we're trying to win, go get Tyreek Hill. I mean, that's part of Dynasty, right? Just getting people for 1 year, correct?
Yeah, you can't just surround your guys with or your team with new guys. You got to go with a couple of must-win now guys. Even last year in our Dynasty League, I was drafting guys in the later rounds like A-Chain. He came on very strong. Now he was hurt, but the dude averaged like 15 yards every time he touched the ball. He averaged like 7.5 yards per game. And he's not even going to be one of my keepers because you're still looking at Mostert in the backfield as well. And like we mentioned, you've got a couple of great wide receivers with Reek the Freak and Jalen Waddle. There's a lot of weapons there. But yeah, you got to go for those win now guys as well. And I think Tyreek Hill fits into that niche of if he put up the same numbers that he did last year, I wouldn't be shocked at all. No. And you need it.
No. Yeah, I know. Well, we've had so much fun with Jeff that we're going to make this a two-part episode. So this week you're going to hear Jeff. He's going to come back with us next week as we close out the receivers. This week we got 1 through 15. Just a quick run through there. My DJ Dove rankings, I had Brown at 1, then Lamb at 2, Jefferson at 3, Chase at 4, Harrison at 5, A.J. Brown at 6, Garrett Wilson at 7, Puka at 8, Tyreek at 9, Michael Pittman at 10, Neighbors at 11, Waddle at 12, Ayuk at 13, Olave at 14, and Drake London at 15 to close out the top 15. Next week we'll go 16 plus as we just go through and just continue perusing wide receiver. If it's that important, why not make it 2 episodes? So JJ Wang, give us some wisdom as we close out this week's episode.
So about wisdom is good. So there's been I will say there's been a few questionable trades this week in some of our dynasty leagues. And it's not. I mean, I understand questionable trades. They're part of dynasty. But I want to get from each of y'all real quick. When you see a questionable trade, it's nobody's collusion or anything like that. It's just some random trades that you don't think. So are y'all the type to say anything, or do you just let it go and see what happens?
That's a good question. I got kind of a big mouth. If I might let somebody else say something first. If it goes for 24 hours and nobody says anything, I might have to just step in and be like, does this really seem fair to everyone else? Trying to play the devil's advocate. I'll probably throw out some stats and go, this doesn't really make sense. You're going to give them 3 guys for 1 guy. So yeah, I always do. I let myself go a little bit without getting the frustration in there, but I like everything to be fair.
Well, ironically, are you talking? Is my trade one of the questionable trades?
I mean, pretty much every trade that went down over the past week has been absolutely insane. Yeah, I could put a question mark on every single trade and be like, why did this happen?
I threw one down where I got Tyreek and the dude was in rebuilding, so he pulled out Daniel. It's super flex, so I did it. And I was surprised that I threw it through a calculator. It's like I can't take this trade because it's kind of off. But he got Danny Jones, Kendre Miller, Quentin Johnston, and who was the 4th piece? There was a 4th piece, but whatever it was, it bounced. I just threw down a trade calculator, just poo-pooing around, going, I can't take this, and he blew me out of the water. I was like, okay, I'll take Tyreek for a few years to help him in the rebuild, but ironically, there's 2 trades that went on that were the big crux of this, and it's the same guy that got both trades, and he got totally jobbed in one trade, and he totally jobbed a guy in the other trade. So it's funny in the aspects of that league how that pulled off. So I'm of the thing where, without collusion, it's hard to really say anything, and usually the knuckleheads pan themselves out. If it's truly bad, they'll get made fun of for a good while, and it moves on. I guess it's a make-believe world, and we've had some of those years where we've had some trades where we go, dude, you're a moron, and that guy turned out to be a genius.
Yeah, I feel like this. I mean, bad trades, good trade. I mean, it's all part of the game. Like I said, some people are newer to Dynasty. Some people don't realize the value that some people do hold, that they could get a little more. But hey, that's what makes it fun. It just makes it harder for people like me when I'm standing here trying to build a team, and then this other guy's just over here getting bogus trade after trade, making his team even better. I'm like, what are we doing? Nobody's ever going to win if we keep stacking this other guy's team, right? So, as always, trust yourself and trust the process.